change.
Updated. So we want to have a motion to approve the minutes for the meeting of April 3rd, 2018.
Second?
Commissioner Clickwell did your four.
Yes.
Commissioner Good.
Aye. All right. And
Then I'll
if
do
you
my
want to go
report.
ahead and
Items I approved on April 9th under the authority granted me. For the county home, I accepted the resignation of David Witz, full-time attendant, number 1504, to be effective April 2nd, 2018. For transit, I approved hiring Russell Calais to the position of part-time driver, number 2210-1, to be effective April 16th, 2018, at the rate of $14.25 per hour for the one-year probationary period. This offer of employment is contingent upon successful completion of the required pre-employment conditions. And I also, for transit, approved and executed the Ohio Motor Fuel tax refund claim for transit buses for the period January 1, 2018 through March 31st, 2018, in the amount of $3,420.
Okay.
all right, come on, Jerry.
Morning.
Jerry.
Or
Adrian.
Adrian.
I know, I do the same thing.
All these water resources guys are starting to affect me. Hey, if you start getting a little bit of
Hey, I could be
salt and
associated with a
pepper
lot
here.
worse, so
Yeah, right.
that's
a
being associated with
compliment.
Jerry is a good thing.
Yes.
Okay, so today's financials include an appropriations transfer from Commissioner's Office to increase those appropriations in the legal fees account. A cash transfer from the Commissioners to the Department of Development, Community Development for their second quarter 2018 funding transfer. Cash transfer from the Commissioners to various departments' funds for the first quarter 2018 interest transfer. Cash transfer from the Commissioner's Office to JFS, to the Family First Council for our fourth quarter special fiscal year 2018 commitment. And cash transfer from the Commissioners to the Sheriff for the local match on the Violence Against Women Act Grant 2017 WFVA28214. Under the encumbrances, we have a travel request from the Department on Aging for senior transportation drive train the trainer classes in Columbus. Then and now from the Auditor's Office to Acumen Data Systems for their fourth installment on the time and attendance software project. Then and now encumbrances from the Commissioner's Office to Skoda Minotti and Company for investigative services for December 2017 and January 2018. Purchase order from the Commissioner's Office to Rotzel and Andrus LPA to secure legal representation for the Juvenile Probate Court. And another purchase order from Commissioner's Office to Montgomery, Rennie, and Johnson LPA to secure legal representation for the Juvenile Probate Court. Travel requests from JFS for the Ohio JFS Directors Association Annual Conference in Columbus, and travel requests from Water Resources to the Ohio AWWA WEA 2018 Technical Conference and Expo in Columbus. Among the vouchers, excuse me, $131,216 from ADP Board to Tyler Technologies for annual service and support maintenance of the county's financial system software, and $20,629.50 from JFS to Liberty Ford Incorporated for the purchase of a 2018 Ford Echo vehicle.
So, can we talk about the purchase orders for juvenile probate court real quick? I have a couple of questions. It's my understanding, so there's two separate issues being requested here, correct?
It was in one court order, and there were two separate issues that he requested those particular law firms be retained.
Okay. In one, I think, is related to the disqualification.
One of those is yes.
Okay.
This is in regards to his battle with the prosecutor's office.
Right. And from, I don't know if we can get the answer to the question today, since there's no representative from the juvenile court here today to explain. I was under the impression that Supreme Court ruling or disqualification case, or whatever it name be, was funded by the Supreme Court. Is that correct? Or
I do not know the answer to that question.
So that it wouldn't have to come out of the general fund, that there's legal counsels provided in those cases. That was my understanding. And the second one being on the other issue, you know, it's again, there's been no act or case filed, so I don't know. I'm not certain why we're going ahead and getting purchase orders for $20,000 with no cases been filed.
Well, the court filed, you know, the Judge Rendell went to the common police court, and Judge Burt agreed to put an order in on his behalf so he could secure legal representation, I guess presuming there was going to be court action.
Okay. I mean, I guess
we were trying to be, to get ahead of the game too,
So
because.
you have more then and nows.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
To
Right.
avoid the Scoda Minotti and the, you know, the special prosecutor
Okay.
issues that we had with the then and now, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's an encumbrance, it's not an expenditure.
Okay.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So I guess it's with the potential of that's there is the thinking is to get this in place. Okay.
Well,
From our end at least, yeah.
Yeah.
well, you know, I mean, he may have commenced work. I mean, he may be accumulating billable hours right now. Once you've done the encumbrance,
Okay.
you're covered now for him to start doing work. If
Okay.
That's what the judges wanted.
Well, I guess if we could reach out to juvenile probate court and just ask that question, because from what I had heard, the you know, legal representation is provided by the Supreme Court.
On the Supreme Court file.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know which one of these is which law firm is dealing with which, or
You have a copy of the court order, yes? I did not bring a copy in.
Rosal and Andrews was the one that was supposed to be with the prosecutor, and the other one was for the cases.
okay.
I've got a broader concern, question, and we're looking into it, and that's the process. So the encumbrance is one thing, paying the bills is another thing. But under the Ohio Revised Code, if I understand it, I'm not an attorney, but I'm talking to an attorney. Anytime somebody gets outside counsel, they're supposed to make a joint application through this office. And so Judge Burt, circumventing the commissioners, takes us out of the equation. We can't negotiate rates. We don't know. We can't control the budget in that regard. So I've got a concern over that. We'll see how that all gets sorted out. But
Yeah, in the order referencing the Supreme Court action, it says here, Attorney Kim Riley, Montgomery, Rennie, and Johnson, Detroit Avenue, Cleveland, Ohio, represents the court in certain matters pursuant to arrangement through the Ohio Supreme Court. In that capacity, Attorney Riley serves as counsel for matters filed with the Ohio Supreme Court. So they're requesting in this order that this Attorney Kim Riley and other attorneys of the law firm Rennie and Johnson be appointed to continue to represent Geauga County Probate Juvenile Court and the judge in the affidavit matters pending in Ohio Supreme Court with respect to the above referenced juvenile court cases. So I guess we'd have to determine, you know, if you've gained information that indicates that the
Yeah.
Supreme Court should be covering those charges, why
That's-
is there an order where the Geauga County General Fund may be on the hook for that?
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
you know, if we could get an answer
Okay.
from whomever.
Yeah, if it's determined that the Supreme Court will pay the bill, then we can always cancel the encumbrance.
it makes it real difficult for us to manage a budget when we're not able to do our jobs. So, I mean,
That's right.
We'll see where it is. I know the courts have separation of powers, and it gets very complicated. But
Yeah.
you know, it's something to at least
But
bring
I-
up and talk about, because it makes it real hard for this office.
Exactly, and it's not that we're here to argue the validity of this, but, you know, just to make public knowledge of the expense of it, you know.
It'd be helpful if the parties involved
Yeah.
would actually talk to one another, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Directly.
Is
I
it,
don't
you know, just is it a reasonable
Yeah.
rate that we're being charged? You
Yeah.
know, that's our process, and that's
Right.
where we fit into this.
Right,
And,
right.
and the public,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah, we're not attorneys, we don't understand the law, the law will sort this whole thing out ultimately, but we have a responsibility for the budget. It makes it hard to manage the budget if we,
Well, dollars being spent here can't be spent on other things. There's lots of things that the general fund's responsible for, and every dollar spent on this activity is not gonna be available for other things that might serve citizens.
Yeah, we've had to move some resources around for all the,
generally, I don't think the public really is too friendly to all the legal but again, it's not for us to weigh or we just have to manage the budget. It makes it hard, so. And the Ohio Revised Code does say, however you want to judge it, no pun intended, that the process is, there should be a joint application, so at least we could be involved and to at least discuss it. And we're being taken out of the equation, so it makes it very hard to do our job, so. With that said, we can move on.
Yeah. There was one other question related to probate court. Wagner LLC, Ibold and O'Brien for $6,000, but there's no explanation as to what it is. Do you have that by any chance?
I did get something from the auditor's office on that this morning. I think it involved some sort of representation that the juvenile probate court provided to a client there, a juvenile, I'm assuming. I forwarded it to Dave as well.
For
And they
$6,000?
split the cost. The total, the judge actually determined that the original amount that was requested was determined to be exorbitant, and they reduced it down to $10,000.
Okay.
And the court was picking up $6,000 of it, and the client or the defendant or whoever it was picking up the other $4,000.
Okay.
So let me ask you, in that case, there, obviously that's probably probate, but, does I just look at what we're paying for our public defender also, is there a possibility that that's something that they would also be able to get involved in instead of having these outside,
Public defender, I think when you have multiple parties in a case, they can't represent, like, I think, multiple people related to the same case. They can do one, but they can't do others. So we get a lot of, juvenile court a couple of years ago made the determination that this office would pay the bills for this appointed counsel. So they're all forward to here, and we process those through, and we review them to the extent they can, but they're all signed off by the judges that are involved in the appointed counsel. So really, again, your hands are tied when we're spending money based on what the court needs, feels it needs that done.
Well, another question, I just thought of it. In the Judge Bird's letter to us, indicated that because the prosecutor was involved, he was making the call.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
But in cases like that, when you bring in a special prosecutor, we can have the prosecutors of an adjoining county possibly help. So I don't know if that's a good
If they'll agree to do that. I think, I've heard our prosecutors say, there's been cases where he's brought that up, and for whatever reason, if that prosecutor that was requested felt that he was being asked to get into something that might have political implications, and they don't want to get involved for whatever reason, that could be a reason why it doesn't work all the time.
Yeah, all I'm suggesting is that I'm spitballing here a little bit. There may be a way to accommodate both the Ohio Revised Code and the conflict of interest that may or may not exist. So, anyway, I don't want to belabor this, but it's just a thought. So.
But yeah, anyway, we can move on. But if there's any way to,
Reach out to them and find out
Yeah.
whether or not the Supreme Court will pay for that one.
right, yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yep.
So do we want to move forward to just approve the financials as is with that encumbrance, with us getting more knowledge, or
Yeah.
do we?
An encumbrance doesn't pay the bill.
No.
And so it just simply sets the money aside. Unfortunately, that takes it out of the general fund, so now it's not touchable. So we can't use it for other things that we might use it for. So.
Or do we go ahead and, wait till next week to get some more information? Obviously, it's not that this is dire that we have to have this, there's no action at this point.
Well, the only issue is that if you don't have anything encumbered and you get a bill that's dated prior to when you encumber it, then you have to then do it then.
Yeah, right.
That's why you want to you want to have some sort of encumbrance so you're covered. If there's work already, based on their understanding, you're going to approve the encumbrance, they've told the attorney, go ahead and get started. If the work's starting and they send a bill and it says, well, on April 9th.
But if there's no
you did
action,
this.
there should be no starting of work.
Well,
Follow?
there shouldn't be. Yeah, if the judge feels that by placing an order with this office that he's done what he had to do to advise us that we need to encumber money, that's, I think, is what they're saying in their
Okay.
order, is that you need to encumber the money.
Okay.
You just have to try and talk with them, and trying to limit the hours and, try to
Yeah.
limit this whole thing and maybe.
I mean, this
maybe
is the
have people
problem,
talk to one
you know,
another.
when we're having conversations with ourselves,
Yes.
right? You know,
Yes.
it's a little difficult to have a conversation by yourself.
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
so I would say, you know, moving forward, I don't know if there's a better way to communicate these things, but, you know, I don't have a problem moving forward with approving the financials for today with it being an encumbrance, just if we do start getting invoices that, with that, you know, if the Supreme Court is gonna cover those charges or
Right,
provide legal
right.
counsel, that it should be,
We should question it,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
okay.
So let's go ahead and do a read on that then.
The Commissioner's Office is requesting the Board approve and execute resolution number 18-55, itemizing the financials for the meeting of April 10th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Claypool?
Yes.
Commissioner Ronan?
Yes.
Aye. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee. Chuck.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for the time this morning.
You bet.
What I wanted to do was, it's been 1 week since I was appointed, and I felt it was imperative that, since you are the appointing body that did so, that I report back to you of any progress or any obstacles that I've faced. I think that's more than just a courtesy. I think that's probably a requirement. And so to start off, I want to thank the commissioners. I know your staff has helped me a great deal. I've met with Dave a couple of times. I met with Dave Favorite. I met with Jerry Morgan. They've kind of done a tour. We've kind of debriefed on a lot of things that they view were obstacles in the past. My main goal is to remove those obstacles, and if I'm unaware of them, I can't really do that. But the prosecutor's office has also shared a lot of information that they feel what were, for lack of a better word, obstacles to their doing their work. In particular, they've offered the services of Kate Jacob, who was on their staff, and she spent countless hours in my office with the staff, debriefing, strategizing, in hopes that we can move forward with a lot cleaner hands. The treasurer's office has reached out. Caroline there has been very accommodating. She's answered every question I've had. Chris Hitchcock has offered any efforts that I need. He would be willing to help me. Engineer's office, even Joe Cattell and Frank Antonucci have, pulled their weight and said, whatever you need, let me know. I've called Frank Antonucci since he's kind of has a unique role with the engineer's office that I'd like to model some of that approach in the auditor's office. So I've asked him very detailed questions of what his job entails. He's offered me a copy of his job description, for example, which we're kind of void of in the auditor's office. And then even Scott Hildenbrand has reached out, the recorder has reached out, the clerk, and actually the judges as well have all said, whatever you need, let us know. So I'm scheduled to meet with all of those authorities. And I know I'm meeting with Skip tomorrow at lunchtime. We're going to go through and do a tour, and we're going to strategize as well how we can better communicate. So that's kind of the 30,000 foot view. From my perspective, my first week has been a lot to do with staff triage. To describe the staff as I entered would be best described as overwhelmed, suppressed is another good word to use, beaten down. And then these words were probably the most concerning to me. In many ways, they feel violated, angry, and hurt. And you can imagine being part of a group that had what occurred with Decatur happened to a group that was very cohesive, very understanding of each other's issues, but at the same time being deceived just right along with the public. So, those feelings are very raw, and so we've had to tiptoe on some issues, and I think those feelings are being expressed. So the good news is that triage is well underway. I had one a very well-respected employee that I've actually known for the 5 years that I've been in government come to me late last week and say, I've cried 3 times this week. Now, when she told me that, I stepped back and said, oh boy, that's not a good thing you want to hear. Right? But she said they were happy tears. So I think that she's letting go of those emotions. So, and I thank the commissioners for putting this to bed quickly. From a business point of view, we have refocused. We have defined our customers. I mean, they are external and internal. I think there was a lack of appreciation of what our goal is. We don't make widgets. You know, we service customers, and those customers are other government agencies, but they're also the residents, and we have to be keenly aware that they have different draws to us. They have different pulls, and we have to service both of them fairly and equally, and communicate with them. In my conversations with Dave, I mean, it was apparent that the lack of communications was the number one hurdle. So I'm doing everything I can to open up those communications. From an organizational structure perspective, which is really what I wanted to express with you today, I have put together a strategy going forward that I'd like to share with you real quickly. So,
Thank you.
yep. And the good news about this strategy is the players, for the most part, are in place. I was very pleasantly surprised to find that underneath the suppression were a lot of very talented, very willing people to step up to the plate. I think that was somewhat demonstrated when the problem arose. There were individuals who surfaced quickly, and I think those people deserve to be rewarded for that energy and effort. But if I could just, and I brought them here today because from my perspective, you know, everybody's looking to me to do something, but the reality is all I'm doing is removing the handcuffs. I mean, my job is pretty easy. The people have been handcuffed for a long time, and I think they deserve to be recognized for their efforts and their knowledge. There is a lot of institutional knowledge that we have to retain, and although we did lose a lot of people, I don't want to lose any more, and the best way to retain them is to appreciate what they do. And it's really not a complicated problem when you really think about it. Ron Leidy has been the chief deputy for a period of time now. Ron is been the calming force in this storm. I mean, Ron never gets riled. He never gets angry. That is very appreciated by me because I tend to be a very passionate person. So, as many of you know, when passions arise, so do anger. So a lot of those other emotions come with it. And Ron is very good at controlling those emotions and putting them in check. But he also brings with them incredible knowledge and a great deal of respect. I mean, I don't think anyone challenges Ron's respect of his peers. They are very well respected as a group, and he's a great leader with those players. So I view him as being a very key role in going forward. The challenges he has is obviously a succession plan. There's very little succession planning going on. We need to do that. And he's got some resource issues that we're going to have to address. That's true with the entire department, however. Al, I call him, we call him all these names, Al and Alan, A and A, I mean, they're,
A squared.
Yeah, A squared, yeah, double A. I mean, but those two have head up they've actually been dropped into place in a very, very difficult position. As you can imagine, having your boss who's holding a lot of information from you, to then be asked in the 11th hour, we need you to bail us out and get us back running. They rose to that task. They did it without concern of their personal issues, whether it's pulls from personal life, from home. They put all of those things on the back burner, and I think this county owes these two individuals a huge thank you. I mean, they put in countless hours, and they continue to do that. So those two have been they've proven to be a great team. I want to keep that team intact. I want that team to move forward with us. Their challenges are going to be cross-discipline issues. We need to have more cross-discipline training going on in both the ADP side and the IT side. But we also need to put in place some resources that can drive us forward in vision. So we are right now, and this is admitted by all parties, we're looking at our feet right now because we're too busy with the task at hand. We need to move that up to look 5 years out, 20 years out. Where are we going to take the technology so we don't make mistakes now that we'll be regretting in the near future when new technology arises? I mean, the whole issue with New World, we've had a huge discussion about that. You know, if the solution in the future is some other product, we need to be geared and ready for that product when it rises to the surface. Not wait for it to hit the street and then go, oh gee, now we have to redo our whole architecture. Kind of a new addition to the staff, which I've been very grateful to Jim Flace for, is he is going to allow me to bring Kate Jacob McLean onto the staff and the auditor. And I'm doing this to mimic Joe Catel's organizational structure. I view Kate's role will be that to lead us in our compliance issues and lead us in our HR functions. Those are two things that are absolutely horrendous right now. We have no job descriptions to speak of. We have very outdated policy manuals. We are very lacking in our controls for our contracts. We need to have a set of eyes on our contracts before we send them off to Jim Flace's office. With his load, we cannot get quick turnaround if they're doing all of the heavy lifting. Mm-hmm. So we have to do a 90 to 95% read on these contracts before we offload it. And it's not to be a representative of counsel for us. It's to be a conscience for us and a guiding light to say, you're going to get in harm's way if you don't pay attention to these details.
Right.
I think that's evident to everybody here.
Yep.
But the solution perhaps was sitting under our nose the whole time in Joe Catel's office. Mm-hmm. That is the role Frank Antonucci plays with Joe, and it works well. It's cost effective from the taxpayer's perspective because we're not loading up the prosecutor's office with more lawyers, mm-hmm. and we're quickly moving through processes, which is where we really, I think, are most efficient. We don't yet have a section leader that's going to do operations, which is kind of the appraisal, licensing, and that. We may use internal people. That's still being worked as we speak. And, of course, you know, my role, I've got 4 more days to go before we find out what will happen with that role. But I think we will wait till April 14th, and then till November to determine what the future lies there. Right. The last person, and this is certainly not least, is we needed a glue that bound us all together. We needed something or someone that could coordinate all of our activities so that internally we were communicating. Mm-hmm. And in the past, you know, that was lacking in the auditor's office. You had silos of information, and there was little exchange because it wasn't encouraged, quite frankly. So Pam McMahon was the admin assistant for Frank. Her role is going to probably expand enormously. I see her talents to be able to keep us all out of our own way, if so to speak. I view her biggest challenge is she's going to have to learn to herd kittens very quickly. Just recently, we had a meeting conflict, and you know, you get upset because you're planning your day, and you've got back-to-back meetings, and then somebody decides to pull out the last minute, and then that leaves a hole, but then they want to plug in somewhere else where there's another meeting, and Pam kind of says, I got it covered, don't worry, I got it covered. So she's moving everyone's schedule, and as you know, coordinating with all these different departments is next to impossible. I mean, everyone's time sliced, and to fit them all into the same time continuum is rather difficult. So I don't envy Pam's job at all, but we're all leaning on her, and I think as the other team leaders lean on her as well, I think she will become very effective at keeping us efficient. Mm-hmm. So that's the net of what I want to share with you. I mean, if it's okay with you, I'd like to take everyone and go back to work. I mean, that we have 4 days, and we've got a lot to do in 4 days. But I did want to thank you, and thank you for your confidence and your support. I mean, those were really vital to our being able to get this done in such a short period of time. And as ever, if anyone has any concerns, I know I've already talked to Skip about some issues we have to do with dealing with setting up vendors. Any one of us on the team is ready and willing to take on a task. I mean, I have not heard anyone say, I don't have time, it's not my job. Those are all the key indicators to me that I tend to get my back arched and say, don't do that. And I've never had to do that there. So my hat goes off to these people. It's not about me, it's about them. I'm just along for the ride, so to speak. So with that, unless you have any questions, I'd be happy to get back to work.
I just want to have one comment. I'm sorry. No. I just have one comment. This is probably one of the most refreshing things that I've seen in I don't know how long. And I can confirm, because I work with your team, and they're really talented people. And so, particularly Pam, she's always kept things straight over there. Your entire team is fantastic. This is one of the most refreshing things I've seen in I don't know how long. And so thank you for all you're doing, and I'm really looking forward to the positive changes that I hear coming. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow, but thank you for taking this challenge on. This is a tall challenge.
Yeah.
And you know, it appears to me, this demonstrates to me you're up for the challenge.
Yeah.
And so, fantastic. People in Geauga County ought to be ecstatic right now. But,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Yep, appreciate
Very
it.
good.
Thanks again.
You skipped that one. Sorry.
Fantastic.
I have it a little out of order at Roger's request because he has to go back to training.
That's a good idea.
So-
Oh, we got Jared.
Thank you,
He
guys.
has to- He has to be at the beginning,
Thanks, Al.
so.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So up for number 5 is the annual rent agreement, and what that is that's the wireless emergency notification system. It's the text page that all the first responders, all the sheriff, all the fire, all the Perry plant folks, that's for everybody in the county. That's also what powers the sheriff's office, sign up for wireless notifications, stuff of that nature. Generally, I believe last count was over 20,000 text messages a year. So it's a huge, and that's, I'm just trying to go off memory, I didn't write it down, but it's a huge service. It is utilized multiple times a day by multiple responders. The contract, this has been going on for multiple years now. This isn't something that is just started up. It's shared three-way between my office, LEPC, and the sheriff's office. So,
Okay. Nope.
The Department of Emergency Services is requesting the board approve and authorize the president of the board to execute the WENS service area agreement between the Department of Emergency Services, Geauga County Local Emergency Planning Committee, and the Geauga County Sheriff's Office, Geauga County Board of Commissioners, and Inspiring Logistics Software for an emergency response notification system for emergency responders and the general public for the period April 1st, 2018 through March 31st, 2019, in the amount of $19,350. $6,450 paid by the Local Emergency Planning Committee, $6,450 paid by the Department of Emergency Services, and $6,450 paid by the Sheriff's Office.
So, second?
Commissioner Claypool?
Yep.
Commissioner Brennan?
Yes.
Commissioner Spillier?
Hi.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Roger.
Yes, sir.
The drone demonstration, did you guys figure that out or not?
It's potentially looking for Wednesday, so I will
Tomorrow.
try to firm up as much as I can find out.
Okay.
From the coordinators today and
Okay.
try to get you a little bit of a fact sheet.
Oh, good. Okay. Looking forward to it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Morning. How are you?
I'm good.
I saw you on the road yesterday.
Oh.
I don't know if you probably didn't, you saw a black truck honking at
I was
you.
on Auburn Road.
Yeah, I saw you on Auburn Road.
Yeah, I jumped in the ditch.
Yep,
No.
I saw you. You looked at me like this. Yeah.
First item on here is kind of turning the tables. Usually, we're bringing easements for you to sign. This one is an easement we're granting to Hampton Township for a culvert. So basically, it's property that the commissioners own on Pearl Road near Woodland Woods, the Geauga Park District. So there's some parcels there, but we are granting Hampton Township an easement. They will be paying you $1 for the easement because of the government. So it's a different, usually we're coming to the commissioners, to pay a resident for an easement. It's just the opposite way around.
Okay.
Good whole dollar, huh?
A whole dollar.
Pay for some court costs.
There you go.
Yeah.
The County Engineer's Office is requesting the board approve and execute the easement for drainage purposes regarding county parcel 15-703820 with Hampton Township trustees for drainage improvements to culvert CU 007008.10 number 1 on Pearl Road in the amount of $1.
So moved.
Second?
Commissioner Claypool?
Yep.
Commissioner Lennon?
Yes.
Commissioner Spillier?
Hi.
Item 7 on the agenda is requesting the board award the bid to CIR Incorporated for the replacement of the Valentine Road Bridge. Structure 52 in Thompson Township in the amount of $154,572.01. The engineer's estimate on that was $155, so it is under the estimate.
Good.
The county engineer's office is requesting the board award the bid to CIR Incorporated for the replacement of the Valentine Road Bridge, structure number 52-0.21 in Thompson Township, in the amount of $154,572.01, as they represent the lowest and best bid.
Second?
Mr. Claypool? Mr. Leonard?
Yes.
Mr. Spillier?
Aye.
Item 8 is requesting the board award the bid to Grade Line Incorporated for the Bundiesburg Road Drainage Improvement Project in Parkman Township in the amount of $250,864.50. The engineer's estimate on that one was $265, so that one also did come in under the engineer's estimate.
When, the road drainage, what, I mean, is that more of the ditches?
This
that
is
ditch?
gonna be a dozen or so culvert, some extension,
Okay.
some replacement, but it's the ditches, you know, fixing the drainage
Yeah.
before we come through and pave.
I mean, I'm familiar with Bundiesburg. I mean, it's a pretty rough road there.
This fall, we have scheduled a resurfacing project too.
Yeah.
So this is the first phase.
Okay.
To get the drainage corrected and fixed, and then we'll come through and do the resurfacing.
I'm just curious, how far does that stretch when you know, 250,000? I mean, does that do the whole entire stretch of Bundiesburg, or is that just
No,
a
it's not
small?
the entire,
No.
but it's a good portion.
Okay.
Because we're leaving some room open where we have the bridge project. We've got that study going on for the bridge, to replace the bridge. So
Okay.
that doesn't really encompass the bridge, but it covers the majority, 90% more of it.
Okay. Just
And that
curious,
is just the
curious.
drainage, that is just the pipe work, so.
The county engineer's office is requesting the board award the bid to Grade Line Incorporated for the Bundiesburg Road drainage improvements in Parkman Township in the amount of $250,864.50, as they represent the lowest and best bid.
Second?
Mr. Claypool?
Yes.
Mr. Leonard?
Yes.
Mr. Spillier?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Community development. Hey, Anita.
Not sure which way I want to go.
Good morning. Making headway?
Well.
I know it's been a busy couple.
All right.
Yeah.
Checking for any updates there on your.
I'm afraid to look at
Yeah.
like, oh
I'm so afraid to look.
I know
don't know.
Just go with this.
Okay, all right, we're gonna pretend.
this has been a lot of last minute,
Oh, my.
yeah, getting it put together, huh?
Well, the mountains were moved.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
stars aligned, I think. It's more like it.
Yikes. Well, let's see. Well, the first one's very easy. As you remember, we've been here, we signed a resolution to enlarge the CRA zone in Troy Township. So the first one is the petition to the application that will be submitted to the state.
Okay.
The Department of Development, Community Impact. I knew I was going to screw this up today. I was like practicing. Community Impact Development is requesting the board approve and authorize the president of the board to execute the Howe Community Reinvestment Area Program petition for area certification to amend and expand the current Community Reinvestment Area CRA zone in Troy Township.
So, second?
Mr. Claypool?
Yep.
Mr. Lemon?
Yes.
Mr. Spillier?
Aye.
All right, let's see, number 10. This is, let's keep it straight. This is the agreement. No, this is the agreement that is acknowledging, if you remember, we certified the agreement when we sent it to the two school boards, Auburn and Berkshire.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, we said this is a certified agreement. If a school puts a condition to what they, after they get our certified agreement, and they add a condition, we should, or could, then amend our, not technically,
But didn't they waive it, both of them?
they waived the comment period.
Okay.
And they agreed to the agreement, but one of them added a condition.
Oh,
So we had to come back and check legal and ORC to see if we could amend a certified agreement that we had already sent with the time period.
Mm.
So did we have to redo the time period? Did we go back to the, anyhow? Both lawyers have conferred, and we added a clause that referred to what Auburn's condition was, and then we added also Berkshire, just a clause saying they waived the period. And we took out on the first page, we referenced the amendment, but the amendment isn't official till later, so we shouldn't have probably referenced it to begin with, so we just took the reference out. So that was the changes we made to the certified agreements
This
with Laura.
identifies the conditions, Auburn's conditions.
Yeah, we basically became the enforcer of Auburn's condition, which I don't agree with, but that's what we said. So we had nothing to do with their negotiating that, so I don't see why we should enforce it. But
The Great
legal,
Lakes has agreed to it.
Great Lakes agreed to it, so, but I don't see why we're a party to it.
Okay.
But I'm not a lawyer. Like you said, I just portray them on TV.
Yeah.
So, that's that one.
So, is there written into that agreement a 10-year clause that you have to come back and you enforce that?
I only promised Great Lakes Cheese I wouldn't retire until this was through. The clock starts ticking.
You have to be the enforcer.
I'm not.
And they
We know
delivered
where you
that
live.
this morning, and then, so that kind of goes along with the condition that they put in there, so, that's the resolution from Auburn, and then because of the conditional in there, we also received a copy of the MOU that says what the condition was that they outlined,
Yeah,
so.
both the resolutions. Plus, Laura also wanted us to have the superintendent again acknowledge that we did change it, but she would accept a superintendent's acknowledgement. They didn't have to go back to their board, and neither of them liked that, but they did it, so. It's a legal world out there.
Yeah, because the board was unanimous. in-
I know, we're enforcing for them. I mean,
Right.
it's no negative for them at all. It's
Right.
another layer of protection.
Okay.
But I still needed to,
Be
or I
official.
still wanted their acknowledgement again.
I see.
So 10 and 11, this is number 11, that is the Berkshire's resolution, which we will.
10 and 11?
Okay,
Maybe I got
now
that right.
11 is,
That's the first.
That's Berkshire. 10 is Auburn,
Oh,
11
I'm
is
sorry,
Berkshire.
I
You did them together,
combined
but that's
them,
okay, so
sorry.
that's why I just wanted to make sure that 10 and 11 are the,
yeah,
and we talked about 12 too, but we'll do that one separate.
but 12 is technically the resolution that
And-
authorizes Ralph to sign.
Yes,
Yeah.
which I have both.
Which
of
probably
here.
should have gone first, eh? No? Okay.
No,
Did-
she
No,
put
Laura
them in
decided.
this
No,
order.
that's fine, that's fine.
I mean, I see the MOU here.
The MOU, we weren't sure that was gonna come to fruition, so we couldn't wait till last
I mean,
week
what's
to
it?
say,
What's
"No, no,
this
no."
for? What's
That's,
this?
Tracy came up with that when he heard that we were going back and forth on the certified, and he put that in motion, though it's superfluous
What's it going to
now.
be used for?
Well, it's just the agreement between Great Lakes Cheese and Auburn, the way,
Okay. But I mean, it's pretty minimal.
well, it's Great Lakes. I mean, really, a
Tracy's
handshake
role in all
would
this?
secure it, but the timing was very important to Tracy, so and you would want, if you would want an MOU that just cemented their agreement. So I can
No, I
sort of
get
see
it.
why you had it, but I don't think we should have been party to it.
Right.
We are now.
But what's
so.
this dollar amount for? Do you know? This
That's-
contribution?
Right, that's the
Condition.
deal they made with Auburn. Great Lakes Cheese made with Auburn, not us.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we just wanted to make sure that Great Lakes Cheese, was.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Like we
I mean,
have
it's
to
such a
hold
small
their
amount
feet
of
to the
money.
fire.
It's
Yeah.
just a
Great
small
Lakes
amount of money.
cheese?
Like, what
Kidding.
would they be using that for? You know?
It's like that $1, that's
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah. Could be somebody that they have to play,
Maybe some legal
justify and say, hey, we,
legal
getting
service.
this. I don't know.
Too many layers.
Yeah.
You want to
Look at
do
the last page.
10 and 11 at least together? That was dropped off this morning. the MOU.
I mean, it really doesn't,
Has no impact.
no impact on what we're doing, right? I mean, no.
It's-
No, it just clarifies the condition that was put into the resolution of approval. which is
Our
the first
amendment
method
has more
legal.
power than that. We're
Oh, yeah.
we're really cemented their deal
Mhm.
by doing that. The MOU is just so much paper.
It just recognizes that there's a condition.
A
to
third
Right.
party,
Right.
yeah.
It says in the MOU that they are going to do an agreement by the end of the month
Yeah,
in regards to that.
which.
Yeah.
Sounds okay to me.
And then
Yeah.
this is Berkshire's resolution that they approved
Last night.
last night.
Okay.
That's waiving the hearing.
Waiving the notification
Notification.
and agreeing to the agreement.
Okay.
Okay.
Need that?
So you want to do 10
Yeah.
or 11 together? Sorry, now put on my, this is back in my file here. The Department of Development, Community Economic Development is requesting the board acknowledge receipt of a resolution from the Auburn Vocational School District Board waiving any and all notification periods required by the Ohio Revised Code and conditionally approving the Troy Township Community Reinvestment Area Agreement between the Geauga County Commissioners, Great Lakes Cheese and JHK Company, and further acknowledge and agree to the conditions set forth in the school board's resolution, to wit, that Great Lakes Cheese and JHK Company enter into a contribution agreement with the school board in which Great Lakes Cheese and JHK Company agreed to compensate the school board by paying $5,000 per year beginning June 1st, 2018, and continuing each year until June 1st, 2032. The Department of Development, Community and Economic Development is requesting the board acknowledge receipt of a resolution from the Berkshire Local School District approving the Troy Township Community Reinvestment Area Agreement between the Geauga County Commissioners, Great Lakes Cheese and JHK Company, and waiving any and all notification periods required by the Ohio Revised Code with regards to the project.
So moved.
Second?
Commissioner Claypool? Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Commissioner Spillier?
Okay.
Then 12 is the resolution that the board agrees to allow Ralph to sign the CRA agreement with Great Lakes Cheese.
This is the
So moved.
resolution.
We're done. Thank you. Moving on.
Do you want to do it that way? I'm good with that. So there's the resolution and there is the CRA that you have to sign.
Second?
Yes.
Yes.
Did you read it?
No, she didn't read it.
Oh,
Just checking.
okay.
I read it.
I read it.
Commissioner Spillier?
Nobody wants to
I don't think
know.
Ralph
They don't want
read
me
it.
to put it
I
on.
think he knew
I
they
told
were
you.
signing, so.
I'm so done.
They read the line.
By the way, that resolution is 18-57.
Yep.
You have one more.
This is the mouthful.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
that's the most innocuous of all.
Yeah.
The least weighty is what that sounds the worst.
Oh, come on now.
That's what I said.
No.
He comes
Oh,
over,
they're
I
so
said, did they
famous
call it
there."
housekeeping?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what it is.
You know it was gonna like come out of there somewhere. So that one goes back here.
Juvenal 313.
Do you want to talk about it at all?
Oh, this is, we don't, housekeeping. We don't have a cemented deal yet, we haven't even gone to committee yet, but it's one of those things where you you get the clock started, and it's just to notify them that there's no environmental impact, because it'll be the purchase of machinery, so but we still have to do the notification period. So whether it happens or doesn't happen doesn't matter, it's dissolves.
So moved.
She didn't get to read. She likes reading this.
Oh, no, come on. The Department of Development is requesting the board approve and authorize the president of the board to execute the Ohio Development Services Agency certification and determination of subsequent exemption for a categorical exclusion project for a revolving loan fund program income for Great Lakes growers in the amount of $215,000. Skip already moved.
A second?
Hold on, just reading.
Doesn't have Jerry's favorite word appurtenances in there. If it had
Really?
there you
I think
go.
I had enough
Yeah,
tongue
we
tied
gotta
today.
add that.
Thank you.
So, just, could you explain this to me again? I apologize, I wasn't.
Whenever we do, we have several categories you can choose from when we use program income, CDBG program income. And if this is the lowest level, because what their project is purchasing machinery and equipment. If they were gonna remodel, or if they, God forbid, were gonna add onto the ground additional building, then you go through a much more elaborate process. This
Okay.
is the simplest one, and because we're allowed to call it an exemption.
It's for
because
equipment.
Yeah, we're not enlarging the
And what are we
footprint.
at total dollars with Great Lakes Growers right now?
Great Lakes Growers has funds out of local revolving loan fund. This is CDBG.
Oh,
This is the more restrictive funds.
okay,
So once you meet your job creation, you can borrow again. And we
okay,
have some companies that have done that, some haven't. But as long as you meet your obligation, you're a good payer, you have no other issues, then we will entertain another project. It hasn't gotten to committee. We don't have everything to go to committee yet, but it's just clearing the deck so the government isn't a holdup. It's basically what we're trying to do.
okay,
You're not bound by this in any way.
Okay.
It's just a notification.
all right, second,
Commissioner Claypool?
Yep.
Commissioner Lyon?
yes,
Commissioner Spiller?
thank you.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, I was drifting off and I was thinking about
I
the
know,
last
all
one.
those
Yeah,
words, it
yeah,
sounds so
yeah,
interesting,
yeah,
doesn't it?
yeah.
Thanks.
Ralph, with respect, Mr. Ferguson, trustee, and Joe Catella have been waiting to come up and talk to us. If you don't mind, I'd like to slip in.
Sure.
Why don't you come on up, John?
Okay.
I don't know if Joe wants to take part or just listen.
I'm good here unless you need me.
So,
Okay, good. He works for me now. I found that out at the NOACA meeting.
all right. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So for everybody's interest, I invited John Ferguson. He's our representative on the NOACA Rural Council, which was set up to, as a subcommittee to provide input to the board on certain activities. And I had a concern over something that was going on in NOACA that John had heard, and so I asked him to come and give us an input on that.
Thanks, John.
Actually, the one page includes two pieces of information. The first three items are directly from the NOACA minutes. It talks about the reasons that you have a rural advisory council, and that was to help NOACA do a better job of planning for the rural areas and addressing their needs. It was also formed because they were getting feedback that NOACA wasn't doing that. They weren't considering the needs of the rural community. And then it transitioned, the meeting transitioned to maybe we ought to create an RTPO, Regional Transportation Planning Organization out of the RAC, so that we can start planning for the rural communities. Keep that in mind as we go through what are really my notes next. I missed the first two meetings. I had back surgery, and John Orris and Kathy Cotman were there, and they kept me up to speed. And it sounded like the first two meetings were just general, bringing everybody on board so we know what's going on. I went to the next meeting expecting that we were going to start doing some planning and implementing and all that good stuff, which we did not do. So I began to ask, when are we going to start doing the planning, and where's the money going to come from? And basically I was told that there is no money and will be no money made available for rural communities anywhere, not just in Geauga, but anywhere in NOACA. And that Ms. Gallucci stated that the funding for rural road improvement is a local issue, and rural roads are considered residential roads and are not eligible for NOACA funding. I'm going to go through this because in about 2 minutes I'm going to tell you where I'm at. I question why we'd even want to put together an RTPO if you're going to plan and not accomplish anything. And we went back and forth, and I finally said, okay, if the RTPO came up with the best plan in all of NOACA, could we get the money to implement it? She said no. So we reviewed why we had an RAC, and that was, again, that we were an advisory group to the urban areas, and that our job was to take what they decide in Nowaka and take it back to our rural communities and communicate them to them. My position was, I'm not gonna go back to the people living on a gravel road and tell them you just approved $400,000 for a bike trail. That's why we can't get our money. I'm not gonna do that. I was more tactful in the meeting than I am here. At that point, I was told that, and you've heard this before, you can leave Nowaka. We don't need you. We don't need Geauga in Nowaka. Nowaka would be better off if you left, because in their mind, they're gonna keep the northeast corner, the 3 or 4 townships that generate most of the revenue. The last meeting I went to, there was a regurgitation of what we had in the first meeting. I kept asking, why would we form an RTPO if we can't plan? Got the same answers that I got the last time, except I got a new answer. Then it said that an RTPO, if we formed one, could supersede both the county engineers and ODOT. And I asked for clarification. I said, you mean if ODOT or the county engineers decided to do something in my community on their roads, I could stop them? She said, yes. Okay. When I got,
huh, Joe?
well, I called Joe.
Can interfere with you?
I called Joe and told him that, and Joe had a different opinion. And he sent me to an ORC that supported Joe's opinion. Okay, Joe does not work for me anymore. Let him go. Interestingly enough, my wife was, since John Orris and I usually ride together, John was in Arizona, so my wife said, let's make a day out of it at Cleveland. And I said, well, you're gonna have to sit through this meeting, no problem. She spent many of her years in divisional planning for Packard Electric, so she's familiar with the planning process. She walked out of there and said, that was a terrible meeting. She said, they never answered any of your questions, and they danced around everything that they told you.
Oh, yeah.
You're familiar with this process.
Yeah.
The bottom line is, I sat in the meeting and said, no, this is nuts. We've got to decide if we're going to go with an RTPO. I'm going to come back and find out where the commissioners are. I don't support an RTPO. It's a waste of time to plan something you can't implement. I further questioned even the value of an RAC, because if we're going to tell Cleveland, for example, that our rural area in Geauga doesn't support what they're doing in Cleveland, who cares? They're not going to care. So I view the RAC as just a way of saying, hey, we talked to these guys and they're okay, whether we're okay or not.
Right. Checks
So
the
where I'm
box.
at this point in time is the RTPO, if you're in agreement, is I'm going to vote against it. I don't see any value in it. And I still question the value of the RAC. And when I go up to the next meeting, I'm going to bring that up again. I seriously question why we're even in Nowaka. I mean, I sit there and listen to the thought process. We represent, Geauga as a whole represents 4.5% to 5% of the population in Nowaka. 60% of what we have is considered rural. And when they were here in a meeting last year, it was pointed out that you get $1 million back from us on the average over the years.
Oh, yeah.
But they also said we contribute $1.5 million. So that doesn't make any sense to me. Somehow we're their hostage. So where I'm at, if you're in agreement, I'm going to try to influence the discontinuance of the RTPO and continue. I mean, I don't know where you're at on the RAC, but it's nuts.
So here's my, and I'm probably as close to this as anybody, and
You
I've
are,
been
yes.
for a long time. I was sitting in when they created the RAC, as you referred to it, the Rural Advisory Council, and generally Nowaka and large bureaucratic urban or regional organizations like that set up these subcommittees for a purpose. It's to further their purpose. And so they set up the subcommittee so that they can get some agreement to take it to the next level committee, because if you guys approve the RTPO, then it will go to the next committee, and they will rubber stamp it, because they don't know. They weren't in on other conversations. They will take your advice. Then it goes to the board, and the board approves it. And so you're really where the rubber meets the road. Anything beyond that is just rubber stamping decisions made by the subcommittees. And so thank you for sitting on this committee. As far as I'm concerned, I might get consensus here, vote no on this RTPO. So Nowaka and these MPOs, Metropolitan Planning Organizations, were established to do regional planning for federalized roads. They don't do planning for rural, they don't do planning for urban areas, they only plan for the roads. They want more, and they try to take more. And that's part of the challenge that we have as a rural community, is that these guys want to get their fingers into everything. And they're doing water quality, they're doing air quality. The water quality strategy is based on, in my estimation, poor information, poor data, poor methodology. We have pushed back on that successfully. But they did create a water quality strategy, and so.
A NEOS process.
And they're
Well, they
they're
did the
implementing
NEOS
it, too.
process, so, I mean.
And looking at ways to tax as well. I mean, that's another major.
Well, that's right. And so, again, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. We are in the WACA. If we're not in the room hearing what's going on, we can get caught off guard. That's the value of, and I know these meetings are boring and they're frustrating, but thank goodness that you guys are on the meeting, in the board, or in that room.
So did you get a free lunch on the taxpayer's
No.
dime?
No.
They don't even bring you free lunch, they bring us
No,
sandwiches.
we get a coffee once in a while.
Well, I've talked to Kathy, I haven't talked to John yet. So far, the consensus has been no. On what their feedback is to vote no. I talked to Kevin O'Reilly to see if he would show up to vote no. He said yes, he would. So we'll see where that goes. But I thought it was important for people to hear, because
Sure.
you're hearing that in the room. And their interest is to further the urban core's best interest. And by the way, we contribute about $10 million, our taxpayers in Geauga County, into the system tax-wise, 18.5 cents a gallon. It's pretty easy to calculate, 95,000, I forget how many cars, we did that one.
Well, it's gone way up, to be honest with you, it was 95 years ago.
But anything that's gonna try and circumvent the engineer.
Yeah,
I'm-
well, I mean.
I'm
it-
totally
it-
against that.
Yeah, and it's ludicrous, because, I mean, I did send John the ORC, I mean, NOACA says one thing, the law says the other, so I don't know which side you're gonna fall on. And, I mean, I assume you read that, right, John?
Yes, I did.
Was it pretty clear on?
It was very clear that you don't work for me.
And
could read
maybe
that.
the converse, correct?
Yeah, I think, yes. Yes.
One interesting thing about these RTPOs is FHWA established them. They claim to help the rural areas. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. Go on FHWA's site, they'll talk about these RTPOs. And it's interesting, all their poster child are in states where their gas tax is extremely high. You take, for instance, they use Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Pennsylvania has the highest state gas tax in the entire nation, and they're using them as a poster child. Look how good this works. Well, if you quadrupled our state gas tax here, we certainly wouldn't need any state or federal help if we got all that money
Right.
that we should. They use California as an example. California is one of the highest, and not only do they have a gas tax, they add on another, what was it, 2.25%, 2.5% sales tax on top of the gas tax. It's those kind of things that, don't give me examples of this is how it works. That's not working. Quadrupling people's taxes to come up with the same results is not working.
Right.
We certainly don't need another layer of bureaucracy involved. We know what we have to go through to get a couple dollars we do get. And, the things that do work are partnering with ODOT. For instance, did this Amish safety study, and as a result of this study, and Skip was quite instrumental in that, in keeping ODOT accountable, following through with this. And ODOT had started the process years ago and dropped it for lack of interest. As a result of that, we were able to get $200,000 put to a small township road, Newcomb Road in Middlefield, as a result of that partnering with the state. We don't need an organization to block us trying to move forward on stuff.
And they would interfere.
And move funding elsewhere,
Right.
quite frankly.
They would spend more money on hyperloops, which is a complete and utter waste of money.
The study.
$600,000 to study a non-existent technology. Everybody should be upset about that, but the general public doesn't know what's
And
going
a lot
on
of
there.
it's-
And so
a
it
lot
sounds
of
good, it
it's-
smells good.
Well, the scary thing is, the Trump administration wants to spend a lot more money on infrastructure. You gotta ask the question, how much is that actually gonna get to real infrastructure?
Exactly.
How much will
As
get
opposed to
less?
getting diverted into bureaucracies doing non-productive stuff.
One of our trustees wrote a letter to President Trump to ask him if Parkland was included in that plan.
Well,
He really did.
Yeah, no, we're gonna do bike lanes, you know, don't have to put up with your cratered roads, we're gonna do.
We're
bike-
gonna call Newcomb Road a bike lane.
Yeah,
I've already
there you
talked to John Orr.
Oh, it'd be
Yeah.
perfect, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Well, I've
Yeah.
reached out to ODOT, they have that $100 million
That's a
safety
great
study
idea.
on our gravel road challenge that we have out there.
Yep.
Mm.
And I asked them, okay, so they allocate those dollars, which are set aside for, specifically for any road in our county, but it's based on body count. So I said to them, how many people do we have to sacrifice to get money? So let's set up a sacrificial
There's a horse count.
thing, and we'll figure out how many bodies we gotta pile up, because ultimately we can get some money for that, so. Well, thanks, John, for your update, I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks, Joe, for your
definitely.
input. so.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Check to-
So now we're gonna be back to number 14.
14, Linda, do you want to talk about this public service recognition, or I can? All right. You know, the state of Ohio years ago enacted legislation that designated the first full week of May as being public service recognition week. And it's to simply recognize the folks that serve the public and try and serve the public and go above and beyond every day. So every year we ask the commissioners to approve a resolution that recognizes what is being done. Typically, departments may do some things internally just to recognize their employees. A lot of times it's out of the director's pocket or the manager's pocket, or the employee's pocket. You know, in the past, commissioners have from time to time approved some small amount of money as part of that recognition, but today we're just asking for you to execute the resolution itself to recognize the employees.
Good.
So, the Commissioners is requesting the board approve and execute resolution 18-56 proclaiming May 6th through May 12th, 2018 as Public Service Recognition Week.
Second?
Commissioner Claypool?
Yep.
Commissioner Lennon?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay.
We've got
Linda,
Linda. So
I don't know.
Push
Let's just
back on
move
this,
it.
I think,
Yeah. Let's just skip that one.
I vote no, I don't, you know, no.
Yeah.
What's the impact of that?
Indentured servitude.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
We're
Whatever.
having a shot collar fitted.
Is that a misprint, the date? The date's a misprint.
No, we had to change it, and I don't even want to explain to you
Okay.
why. It is correct, July 2nd.
Okay.
okay. So this is
Us and payroll.
okay. So unfortunately, we're going to be accepting the resignation. I don't like resignation. So the retirement of
Yeah.
Linda Bruhenny, Director of Administrative Services, to be effective July 2nd of 2018.
I'm ignoring it. It's, you know, if I ignore it, we'll
What if we
always-
say
Dice
no?
for a motion.
What if we say no? Yeah.
Strangely enough, I still won't be here.
Yeah. Is this another one where it doesn't matter what I say?
Hey, Tom, can we go
Get the
figure
job
out
now.
if an employee doesn't show up?
I'm starting to figure this job out.
That's it, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Just get blamed.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Reluctantly.
Yeah.
Commissioner Claypool?
Yes.
Commissioner Lennon?
Yes.
Commissioner Spudler?
Yeah, we need to make the best of the time from here till then.
Yes.
And we will be coming to you, providing you suggestions as to how we will probably reorganize
Right.
staff to,
Yeah.
try to, we can't replace them, that's not gonna happen, but
Well-
try and do the essential work.
Between now and July, there's gonna be a lot of opportunity for us to speak up and say a lot of positive things about Linda. When she's gone, then we'll say all the negative things. But, you know, I'll just, you know, Linda's been right at the forefront of a lot of stuff that goes on in our office and key to the success of this office. And I want to say publicly how much we appreciate the time that you've been here and the good job that you've done and all that kind of stuff. So, and you're going to be really missed. So.
Second that.
Sure, that's absolutely.
So number 16, the Commissioner's Office is requesting the Board approve and authorize the President of the Board to execute the revised accounting forms, authorization forms, and payroll authorization forms for the Archives and Records Center, Commissioner's Office, and Department of Development.
Second.
Commissioner Claypool? Commissioner Lennon?
Yes.
Aye. And for 17.
Jerry?
Jerry's going to his first Central meeting, that's where each county gets to vote on the members of the Central Board.
Exciting.
Exciting.
Can't wait.
Huh?
Yeah.
It's a big day.
Nice drive for a 2-hour meeting.
Yeah, I saw that, I said, this would be a great thing for Jerry to start getting involved.
Where is it, in Columbus?
Columbus,
Yeah.
in Columbus.
Jerry, let's talk before you get down there. I got some specific input for you.
You might want to miss that meeting.
Yeah, just let him get on to first base.
Let him at least get in the door.
Yeah, right, yeah, yeah. That's
We gotta
great.
start it off right.
Right, yeah.
All right.
All
So
right.
do we have a motion for Jerry?
So moved.
Second,
Commissioner Claypool?
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Lennon?
yes.
Commissioner Spudler?
Aye. And do you have another?
There was a correction that needed to be made to a previous resolution, so this is just a reprint, and I just need you guys to sign it, that's all.
Okay.
There's
So,
the motion.
so Dave, will you look into that, purchase order from earlier? Just
Yeah, I'm
remind
gonna
me.
contact Juvenal Court and just say the commissioners want clarification on
Yeah.
whether or not legal
That's
representation.
that's the way I read it, but I mean,
Yeah.
again, I don't,
Yeah,
I could be
just
dead
we will
wrong.
ask for
Yeah, Yeah.
clarification, yeah.
John, do you have anything? John Hunter, if you both know him, he's from Huntsburg, trustee.
Yeah. Well, I'm not on the agenda, but first, as a trustee, I want to say that I've got a couple roads in Huntsburg that I could put on a bike path.
I bet. I bet.
Appreciate that. Actually, I just stopped up to bend an ear if I could. I'm representing a Methodist church in Millfield. We wanted to annex 15 acres from the township into the village. And I just wanted to see if you could give me any kind of fast tracks to how to go about that. I've got pretty much the blessing of the township and the village, and I'm gathering some of the information that I've picked up online. Do I set up an appointment with you or get on the agenda? How do I present that?
They
So-
can't comment.
I guess we can't, Christie has a lot of knowledge about this, gained over the years, and one of the things that, the advice we get out of the prosecutor's office is we can't be guiding people on how to do it. Am I saying that correctly?
I did get that from I think it's called.
I'm glad you
What-
said that.
what
'cause
about
I was just-
your,
I was just getting ready to.
What about your
They can't-
prosecutors?
They are the ones that have to make the
Your
decision.
your
so they're not
assistant
allowed to
prosecutor?
Well, speed from the township.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay, it's a
See, I'm
private
not-
matter.
It's a private matter.
Okay,
not
I thought,
church-
okay,
Church
I'm
is
sorry.
initiating the
I'm
request.
sorry, I'm sorry,
Right.
I'm sorry.
I made the suggestion at the recommendation of Laura was to have the church, because you started working on the process, that they needed to contact an attorney to guide them through the petition process. We are not allowed to point them in any direction other than that they need to go look at the section of the ORC, because there are so many different types of annexation. It's up to them to decide what form of annexation that they're going to petition the board to make the decision on.
Let me ask you, would this fall under economic development in any way? I mean, that we could, I mean, these are the type of things we want to help assist, you know, facilitate.
Because
you
what
know.
about between Dave and
Yeah.
with Dave and Dave?
Well, my question was gonna be, could we not provide records of other people who have done similar things in the past, was initiated by somebody in a similar
They would just have to do a public records report.
I mean, at least get them pointed and, you know, plug them into the right channels so they can begin the process.
He's already started on that process.
Okay.
They have to determine what type of annexation
Right.
that they're going to petition you for.
But if they ask for a record of who has done this kind of request before, and we respond to that request, then they can contact those folks and say, well, when we had to do it, this is how it went.
Which office do I get those, like Bonner?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's,
Bonner, it's all Middlefield Township and Middlefield Village. They're
Yeah.
the ones that we've done in the
Okay, I
past.
know
So
it's a different type of annexation, but.
and actually, that was probably the most I would say that we've had two which have been probably the most recent that I could recall is we had where Pierre did where the gas station is over there.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, Pierre Hodgins over at Middlefield Tractor, he ended up coming in with one for that. And I think that Ben Garlick actually came in with him from representative from Middlefield with that whole scenario also. And then the other one that we had would have been the property at 528 and 87 when Bonner reorganized and annexed that it was like 212 acres or something.
Right.
That was on the corner over there, and I think that actually Middlefield, I think Dan Weir and Ben were here for that one also. So,
they
but
were both two different types of annexation.
yeah,
Well,
They
that's what you
fell,
have to,
that's the thing, they fell under two different
hopefully somebody can
categories.
talk to.
but why couldn't
options
Planning
and
Commission
explain.
talk to him about that? Why couldn't Dave Dietrich give him a good understanding on that one?
Yeah, Dave Favorite, can you,
Sure.
do
Yeah.
research? Just, these guys can't be involved, yeah, they have to weigh in on it, so that's.
They have to make the
That would be
decision.
my
Briefly talked to
suggestion.
Dave, but,
Yeah.
And I just,
I know there's,
it's section, well, I don't know, I'm not an attorney, but I just typed in annexation Ohio Revised Code 709.02, describes the petition process.
I've been looking all
So-
through that.
So it looks relatively
It's thick on my
straightforward,
desk.
and,
That's all annexation. There's a book. It's this
Yeah,
thick.
it's,
But-
It's quite lengthy. And
Okay.
I was trying to avoid going through an attorney, but.
Right, legal
my guess
costs,
is that's
yeah.
what I'm gonna do.
The suggestion that I will make is that the reason why there was a recommendation of an attorney is because there's so many pieces that have to be involved with the petition coming to the board, that if there is pieces missing, then you restart your process over. So having an attorney advise you on submitting that petition and what needs to be attached to it is why that recommendation was made.
That makes sense.
and if you're in the Methodist Church, I'm a Methodist, I go to Mayfield
I'm
Methodist.
an attorney.
I'm not an attorney, I've said that, I don't know
Yeah,
anything,
about
but-
4 times already.
And I'm not a judge, I want to be a judge, and I'm not an attorney. But in your church, I'm sure you got an attorney someplace. They ought to be able to, give you pro bono assistance, I would think.
Go through all that.
And if you don't know any, call me and I'll make a recommendation to you. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that, John. Not some,
Let us know.
maybe more.
Okay.
Unfortunately, your prosecutor has tied you because you have to make the ultimate decision.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I built a wall, put you under a bubble.
You're building a wall.
You want to get up here and speak, Mike?
Mike, do you have anything?
I gotta get him back from work release.
He's gonna take the shackle off.
I'm working on your request,
Oh, I'm waiting.
so.
Funny.
It's
Anybody
in the
else got
mail,
any
Mike.
comment?
Huh?
No,
It's in the mail.
unfortunately.
Yeah, well, it's only a week and a half.
It's not my paperwork. I have to direct you back to them. It's not something that we have in our office.
That's the vicious circle we're in, huh?
Yes,
The blame game.
It's not my job.
it's not our department.
Yeah.
I wanna know what my job is. Okay, find out.
So,
All right.
All right.
The other thing I want to mention, remind you, we got a email from the law library regarding their funding request.
Oh, yeah.
I want you guys to think about that and you can get back to me individually with some thoughts.
Well, I mean, we could talk about it now, right?
Yeah.
So this has been something from the budget hearing, I think, from last year.
Well, I had Adrian go look
I
at
just wanted
that. Yeah, I had Adrian, because I was trying to be clear on whether or not there was, in the budget hearing, there was.
I thought that you made mention of it, that they had some additional type things they would like to purchase. Some of these subscriptions, I believe that, the prosecutor's office
Yeah.
is wanting, and by law, I guess the prosecutor's office can't buy some of these things. It has to come through the General
Yeah.
fund, from what I understand. I think the total amount, you know, they wanna adjust their budget is about another $10,000 extra.
It looks
annually.
like they're looking for some kind of a commitment of 10,000 extra. You know,
Which
the only
I-
thing I saw in here that I wanted to just bring up is I think because I've been involved with this and looking at it for a number of years. They've mentioned how they'd spent money on renovation of the offices, and then it was like the commissioner's decision to cut back their space, and it wasn't really the commissioner's decision to cut back the space. It was the court basically saying we need to use this.
Okay. Well, I feel that, you know, our role as commissioners is really here to, in a reasonable way, you know, making sure that everybody has the tools needed to perform their job, you know? And if, you know, it doesn't seem unreasonable, I think, in the big picture for the requests they're making for, you know, I know some of these things are expensive, these books and all these, you know, and, you know, more and more demands being put on the prosecutor's office, so I'm not really gonna, you know, second guess the request for the need. I think the dollar amount sounds reasonable, so I would go ahead and make a motion to move forward with that. I know they haven't formally filled out an application or a request, but.
Well, no, they don't
I'm
have
okay.
to. I mean, if you guys decide to take action as a board to approve, at least for this year, that supplemental funding, then we just put it in the financial.
Yeah, I mean,
That's what
I've been to multiple meetings over there at the law library and sat down and they've kind of laid out their reasons why, you know, they feel that they need this extra money. I mean, most of their budget is dedicated to salaries. It seems like the majority of it is.
I mean, it's really just,
Yeah.
because I used to have to approve their stuff because they needed a second approval of the
Right,
system.
right.
Or in the salaries, it's all these
Right.
subscriptions that where they kind of got you.
Right.
You know, there's only a few places you get it from and you're gonna pay.
Yeah,
And other than that, it's some very minor other administrative expenses.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're running a palace over.
right, no. So.
I haven't seen the request though, but is this additional, I mean, they've
It
been.
was an
running-
email, it was sent, I think, to all of you. You got copies.
Yeah, I mean, they brought it up in their budget hearing. I mean, I do remember, we all kind of chimed in on it. It was,
Yeah.
you know, but again, you know, with you know, the fees that have come out of the courts have been less and less and less too. So
Yeah.
that's been less and less. They've had.
That's
been
really the
able
big
to-
issue. The
to
fine
deal-
revenue
yeah,
has gone down a
Right.
lot.
So I kind of understand their, you know, just like everybody is getting pulled in different directions, but I'm okay moving forward with that request if this board is, or if they want to wait till next week, that's fine too. But you know, my feeling is I'm comfortable moving forward with it.
Okay. So
Yeah.
Is this an increase in, I mean, with the question that I have is, they've been cruising along with an existing set of licenses, so what is the need?
Well, no, the problem is their revenues are declining. So they have, right now, they have cash balance. It's not like they're gonna not make payroll next week, but it's going down. Because, you know, your operation expenses between salaries and benefits and
But
subscriptions.
the
is
way I
flat.
understand it, and I guess you could look at it half a dozen, whichever, but they've got money in their balance sheet, but it's, you know, it's encumbered.
down.
It's set aside for salaries, you know, so I guess what they're worried about is, you know, going out and you know, buying subscriptions, and then we don't approve you know,
Right.
the $10,000.
No, their balance is going down. I mean,
right,
that's really the
right.
issue. You
I
look
mean,
at the
it's
trend,
it's all going
yeah.
to salary, you know.
Right, yeah.
So,
But I mean, they have a set of licenses, is there a demand for more licenses?
No, no,
Are these
no.
licenses used in the library? Because I know that when they buy licenses, they tend to buy them for the prosecutor.
These are
Well,
for the books.
this
So-
being,
Subscriptions for, like,
we
the
got a letter,
prosecution,
we got an
It's for the
email.
prosecutor, it's for the the courts, it's for,
Yeah, I mean, we got a letter from them and pretty, laid out in detail what the need is.
yeah.
So,
I mean, I'm not gonna question their.
you know, I don't think
you know.
10,000
Yeah.
is unreasonable to, you know, give them enough to make through the year, and then we talk to them in budget hearings, see what's the future here.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, it's just like the sheriff's department coming to us and saying they need resources for.
Right.
I'm not gonna question the sheriff's judgment and what, you know, how many vehicles he needs. If he says he needs 7, he needs 7, you know. I mean, if you're saying I need 107, then I may say, wait, you know, you know, if that's what they're saying, and I think that's that's the way I view my job as a commissioner, is to help provide the resources and tools needed by all the departments, you know.
Yeah.
making sure it's a reasonable request, but, I know those books are expensive, you know, those, and a lot of them are going back to these books because they, I don't know, there's something about them being on the computers or something is, you know, they like having the hard books or something.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I mean, are they buying books with us, or are they buying
Yeah.
licenses for?
but I think subscriptions.
Because they don't have room for the books. They didn't have the shelf space.
I don't know.
Interesting. I mean, I'd
Yeah.
go along with it, but I've not read this. I generally like to be informed before I.
Well, he brought it up in the budget hearing.
I mean, it doesn't really take action today, but if you guys could get back to us, we can put it on the financials if it appears that you'd be supportive of it. And then you can throw it on in the financials if you're okay with that. I just wanted to give an answer back because they were kind of waiting for it.
Yeah, I mean, they've been talking about this for 6 months.
Yeah.
And we declined it for some reason in the budget. I just don't remember. Again, I would.
Well, we
go
never,
along.
We didn't decline it.
We didn't
the
decline
commissioners never had to provide the money before because it was coming out of a balance from the fines.
Right.
And then, they had a whole plan, when there was a shift in the law, how it was funded, and there was a whole plan going forward on how they were going to be financially sustainable, but I think that was kind of making the assumption that they would always be getting some basic level of funding from
Right.
fines, and that just keeps going down.
Down, yeah.
Why is it going down? Do we have less crime?
No.
No.
The judges.
The judge waives the fines.
Very interesting.
For some.
There's court costs, they still waive, they
Not
have to
for
impose
being
the court
used.
costs, but it's within the judge's discretion
Yeah.
on whether to levy a fine.
They didn't waive his fine.
$1.25 or $1.50 out of the $150 charge went to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very small percentage.
It's a very small.
It's
Teeny.
very
teeny.
minor.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
So Commissioner Claypool?
Sure.
Someone?
Yes.
Right.
Good.
Okay.
So we should put on financial.
Great.
And that comes out of your paycheck?
Paycheck.
Anyway, did you talk about the budget hearing?
Yeah.
What's the plan
Yeah.
going forward?
Yeah.
So you know. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, they brought this up a few times,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
to their
I just wanted
credit.
to-
I think they weren't sure how to approach it to get it implemented now, you know.
I just wanted to make sure they know that whole thing where their space was taken away was not something that was pushed by this office.
I don't remember that, but.
Well, it wasn't. It was
Yeah.
really the court saying, we want these probation resources.
Was that
closer to
before I
us.
was here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and there was a good reason for that. And, and you could argue that with technology, they don't need as much space to have books. So I'm not saying they're wrong, just it's not like, I just want everybody to understand that, it wasn't the commissioners
Right.
throwing their weight around and say, we're gonna kick you out of some of your space. It was a need expressed by the court that had some validity, and so it is what it is, that's all.
So in